the 18th of May, 2022. Hi, thanks for tuning in to my official YouTube channel. Make sure to subscribe to my official YouTube channel and also like and share my official YouTube videos. Additionally, go to my website, www.susanmeling.com. And so today is the 18th of May, 2022. So, I'm gonna start out with this joke that seems almost apropos. So I have to fix my straps, okay? So, because this particular official YouTube video of mine seems like it might be apropos to fix my straps. So, I have had a different type of childhood. I don't deny that. I was born and raised in New Jersey. And being born and raised in New Jersey in the 1980s and 1990s, well, I don't know what other people know about the 1980s and 1990s because I was a child and I had a head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000 when I was in the Army. And so during basic training, on Palm Sunday in 2000, I had a head injury because a drill sergeant threw me into the metal part of a bunk. After the earlier services regarding that, and then it was because I had seen a sign. It was a literal little yellow piece of paper that had a folded palm leaf in the shape of a cross. And the night before, literally, I had been, for those who know the military definition of being smoked, for those who don't, it's a lot of push-ups and different military exercises until you're told to stop. So it began around 10 or 10:30 or so, 20:30 as far as that, or 2200 hours to 22:30 for those who understand military time. And so that was because I had asked to see a female's identification card because she wanted to see the drill sergeant, and that went the way that did. And I remember she had a picnic basket because she wanted to surprise whatever, which I suppose is an irony in different references. So anyway, I went to call 911, and when I went to do that, the drill sergeant ripped that out of the wall. Then the following day was, smoking and all that, and then breakfast and the Palm Sunday services, and then later that night is when smoked some more, and then after I started counting, I don't know what, I just remember it was lights out and it didn't even seem like 5 minutes before everybody had lights back on and how that went. And so, but that would be after I started counting, whatever time it was. I know it was around midnight, and then that was when the 45 minutes count was. Then I had the head injury. I was in a coma for a while, and I don't know how long I was in a coma, because I was in a coma, and I woke up at Fort Sam Houston, but I had been in basic training at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. So, I don't know what other people's childhood is. I was 17 years old when that happened. And so, I was in medical hold unit, so on and so forth, and this was in the year 2000. So then, I had been informed in the state of Texas, similarly to what I dealt with in Illinois and New Jersey, I had been asked if I grew up under a rock because I had not grown up seeing certain movies or television shows. And in the early 2000s, obviously certain situations occurred, and then the mid 2010s wound up in Washington State with my son after what occurred regarding my daughter, and then those particular situations in between, and then going back to the state of Texas, 2019, and this is the year 2022. So, I don't know if the proverbial term sins of the father has to refer to this. I have no idea. So, I also don't know what certain things were going on despite the background I have as a child. So, my biological father went to the School of Bulova, and he had been certified to work on Bulova watches as well as Rolexes, Movados, Seikos, all sorts of stuff. He was capable to certify gemstones as well, and he knew how to cast moldings for different jewelry pieces, so on and so forth, even including my bakong and my bakpu. My bakong had a large piece of jade that was the size of a 1980s, 1990s attaché case. And it was from a specific part of China, because that's where my bakong and my bakpu had been born and raised. Mike, my biological father, was in the process of arranging a laser situation to be capable to precisely carve different pendants that would be just in reference to family members. And so I learned about that, and my biological mother had worked at Prudential, being information technology and software. So I'm the firstborn, and I'm a biological female. And so my biological father is first generation Chinese, and I'm the firstborn. So we had a disagreement in reference to what I personally got into. So I was invited to Marine and Science Technology School with the Navy attachment, did the whole test stuff, and then that went the way it did, and I was in Illinois in 1998, and then graduated early in 2000 to then go to the Army. I had to fight for that. It was a big disagreement. My biological mother and biological father tried to claim that my being invited to Marine and Science Technology School with the Navy attachment, according to them, my invitation was a phase for me. Doesn't really make sense because it wasn't like the Army situation where they tried claiming the same thing as far as the Army being a phase in their opinion compared to. So we had a big disagreement as to what a phase is defined as, because I was interested in the military back as a child after having already been attending Old Tenet Presbyterian Church for a while, and Old Tenet Presbyterian Church was used as a hospital during the Revolutionary War. So it kind of, it was a very different time in the 1980s and 1990s as far as that was concerned, because I could see spirits, and I knew how to distinguish between a physical human being compared to an actual spirit, and all sorts of aspects of. And as a child, this is well before this situation that I'm going to go into occurred, I could see these things, and my biological parents tried to claim certain opinions, and so it wasn't until second grade that I had a nightmare. And so, but after my nightmare, irony of ironies, around the time I was in either third or fourth grade, so my biological father informed me that he had gotten into the gold stocks, okay, and the 1980s, 1990s time frame. I don't know what year specifically. And so there was this guy in Austin, Texas, who reminded me of some of these people that I knew. And so I guess this is finding a different type of silver lining. So you can go to my website, www.susanmealing.com, and maybe this might assist. So this guy that I met in the supposed to be consenting adult lifestyle, he had this watch case, a pocket watch case. And it was the clock part was actually taken out of it, and it was just the shell casing. And so people who smoke cigarettes would ash into this little cigarette case, which is funny because if you look at the initials for certain what have yous regarding Asher Holmes Elementary School, here to arrange certain things. Anyway, so I knew my biological father had been certified by the School of Bolivar. And so I have seen many types of watches. I've seen many types of jewelry. And so I got in trouble as a 4-year-old. This is before I had gone to elementary school. And I had drawn a female without any clothing per se, except for in this one particular area where gay males would have an allergic reaction to, in my opinion, because they're gay males and that's how that works. So, my biological mother had absolutely no idea where I could ever get that idea. You know, the female I drew, she had long hair, about to here, anatomically correct in a certain region. And my biological mother, the deacon of Presbyterian Church, had no idea where I could ever go. In the 1980s, that I could ever see that. And so from that point on, I could only watch G-rated movies no matter what until I was 13 years old. This is the type of household I grew up with. So, you know, for those people who claim that they have family issues, this is from I was 4 years old and got blamed for this, okay? Keep this in mind. 4 years old, cannot drive. Aside from the fact that I was intelligent enough as a 4-year-old to grab the correct key for the correct car and say, key, car, McDonald's, French fries? And I remember doing that, although I remember adding chicken nuggets. Yeah, because I hadn't gotten to the Big Mac yet. Because I was 4 years old. And so I had a guy who had asked me around the time of 2011 if I knew what he had said something about the exit number regarding, because I had been born and raised in New Jersey, and I didn't understand why he would ask me that, because I had informed him that as a teenager I was in Illinois. And so I don't know if he thought when I was 4 years old with the key car McDonald's French fry thing, if he thought I actually was driving. No. That's not how that went. And well, ironically, there was no exit number because you went down Church Road, and then you went on Tennant Road, and then you went on another road, and then you turned on another road, and there was McDonald's. So why would I need to know what exit number? Ugh. Yeah, I had so many thoughts during that point in time. I was like, really? What? You know, I'm dumb, and I know I went from college algebra with trigonometry and calculus to second grade math, and even I know a 4-year-old cannot drive in the state of New Jersey. I don't care what year it is. Especially in the 1980s and 1990s. Yeah, okay. I mean, I'm just saying. So nonetheless, again, there was no exit number. I don't know what people's stereotype is about New Jersey. Guess what? Surprise, we have back roads too. Anyway, there's quite a few actually. So, so my biological father, hold on real quick, I have to get this because I have well, I'll get to that in a minute. So my biological father told me he got into the gold industry because of the jewelry stuff. Well, that makes sense. Makes sense to me. Yeah, it does. And so, this guy tells me that he got into multiple types of gold. He bought bricks of gold. And so, I like certain jewelry. And so, I like white gold. And irony of irony, I remember my biological father talking about white gold because, jewelry. I have this sensation that it might, I don't know which way people might think in reference to why I was only allowed to watch G-rated movies as a child until I turned 13 years old. That was one reason in regards of, the picture that I drew of a female. And, wherever that might be. Hypothetically, I might have found a couple locations here and there, some sort of whatever. And so, wherever different types of shiny jewelry might be for, I did get the explanation of the difference for jewelry between someone who has just a bunch of whatevers compared to someone who has a wife that's the one and only, and compared to someone who has a wife and possibly a whatever number of. I know how to distinguish on sight as far as that's concerned. Yeah. I know quite a bit about jewelry, probably because of maybe something along, though I haven't seen that in any of the locations I went to go watch what was on stage. However, I also wasn't in the normal areas that I can recall in regards of what would be as considered where I would know in other, like it's more of a, so I volunteered at Club Sapphire and I did not see what I would consider a VIP section in regards of how that was actually set up in some of these locations that my biological father's jewelry business had been in. And so these people at Old Tenet Presbyterian Church had no idea how I could be into certain music, which anybody who's ever been to an exotic dancer club, maybe you could guesstimate where I heard some music here and there. Maybe, hypothetically, it's a common theme that at a, exotic dancer club, they play certain music. Not just certain neighborhoods, though, just possibly a thing. I know when I have attended and sat in the audience watching and enjoying what was on stage as far as the sights were concerned, especially depending on the situations, I didn't see certain things. Now, Club Sapphire is not the same as that. Obviously, that's an adult social club where it's a swinger location in comparison to, what was going on in New Jersey in the 1980s and 1990s. And what was occurring in the 1980s and 1990s in the 5 boroughs of New York City. And what was occurring in Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in the 1980s and 1990s. So my biological father had said, he had gotten into white gold, okay? And so he had gotten into yellow gold too, and I have been looking at where the green gold is. However, I don't know what is referred to as far as that's concerned. So after I was in the state of Texas for a while, my biological father and biological mother and biological sister moved to the state of Texas. I don't know if there's any, whatever, it is what it is, because I don't know officially. However, going back to the strapped part, maybe that might be a different reference. So I had, and so when I say that my babysitter's husband worked in the World Trade Center doing security, well, he did. He did. I don't know how that goes, though, as far as other stuff, as any situation. I know he was very strict when it came to quite a few situations in comparison. So I don't know. I know that there was an issue between Mike and Joe Jose, who had worked as director of security in the World Trade Center and World Trade Center Plaza. And so when 1993 occurred, I was sick with mono, Epstein-Barr bronchitis, Lyme's disease, and the flu all at the same time, and I had been known to assist doing security runs to make sure, talk about walking a thin line as a child, I suppose. Anyway, because that's strict, when you can't watch anything above a G-rated movie and PG-13. Yeah, PG and PG-13 still have PG in there, so only G-rated until after I turned 13. Oh yeah, don't you know, as far as my biological mother is concerned. And so that's my childhood. And so then my biological father, with this white gold. Well, this guy, he had this pocket watch, and it didn't have the clock face. And so, he used it as ash for an ashtray. So I knew people who had these little white baggies. And I shouldn't say they were white bags, they were clear bags with white stuff in it. And so I thought it was pixie stick sugar or regular sugar, because who knows people in New Jersey that drink coffee, and sometimes they don't have certain types of sugar. So this is what was explained to me. I have a sensation now in the year of 2022 that intelligence was considered as different. I don't know. Although I do not believe that might have been, I think that might not have been sugar. Unless there's a different reference of sugar that I wouldn't know. And so my biological father had a dog named Sugar at one point in time. Just gonna leave it at that for that reference. So maybe somebody knows the reference between white gold and sugar, because I thought, because I like to cook. So anybody who's made pastries or certain types of cake, a white chocolate has white sugar in it. So, I learned that was not for confectionery, nor was that for a cake. So here's how strict my biological parents were, because there's why wasn't I allowed to watch anything above a G-rated movie or anything? Well, this is part of why. Then apparently, whatever type of non-pixie stick sugar that was, there was the tablespoon measurement, and so, it was right there. Made perfect sense to me, and I had to cook, so, I do acknowledge it was weird to me that it didn't really look like confectioner sugar. I don't know what it was, though. I do remember my biological father at one point asking me if I had used soap in comparison I drew a picture. 4 years old, fast forward to 3rd or 4th grade, and my bad, who knew that? So I had to start cooking dinner more often during the week, and I had more responsibilities because apparently there was debt that I owed for something because of however much not sugar there was, though that is what it is for those who understand that. So, then there was DIFUS. I don't know why. Common sense wasn't applied to that, but maybe there's some common sense now in the year of 2022 as to what I was dealing with. The child and a teenager. So, yeah. And biological adults. So, yeah. So, then there's that. So, don't be jealous. So, I told people this in person, face-to-face in person, and we talk about stuff. Sometimes I'd be joking around, sometimes I'd be telling them something, and before whatever, I'd be like, don't be jealous, because I mean it. Because you have to have the entirety. You can't have just like picking and choosing here and there regarding my life. So you have to survive all of this. So I've told people, don't be jealous. And so many people were like, but I am. And it's one of those, why? I know what my life has been. You complain because you got in trouble for sneaking out. I got in trouble for cooking when I was told to cook. And then because I used the wrong sugar, apparently that was my fault, and it's not even my fault because it was labeled sugar. And so, what am I supposed to do? But, no, that is what it is. I also learned then there's flour, and apparently, that's another issue regarding that. And so, I had there were people who didn't realize how strict my childhood was. There were some who had an idea, and you really probably didn't. So, but again, these females, especially at Old Tennant Presbyterian Church, had no idea as to how I could know certain music. Like Snoop Dogg, or Biggie Smalls, or Lil' Kim, Queen Latifah. So then of course when my biological mother found out, I don't know in this reference who saw the sign first on this one regarding the picture that I drew, because then in St. John Vianney High School, I had drawn a lingerie outfit, and I was like, this would be a cuter design. And so, those who have seen the Exotic Easter 2011 event regarding the Jack in the Box and how she had made her stuff, so I had drawn, it was a sheer sort of lingerie, chiffon something another, and then it was like a bikini, but like the triangle bikini and stuff like that, and and then it was, I had done different designs. So one had like a little draping thing right here that said eat, and then your, and then a picture of a heart, and then the word out in regards of, I had these different designs. And so at St. John Vianney High School, they tattletaled on me to my biological mother. And so, I didn't get to watch a PG-13 rated movie until I was a sophomore because, I obviously didn't learn my lesson. I don't know what lesson I was supposed to learn as far as this stuff was concerned, but my biological mother, the most rose-colored of rose-colored glasses, is like, oh, well, it did. And anybody who has been involved with certain things, you know whether or not I'm accurate on that. And so, no, they were wearing that. Yeah. And so, I'm gonna, yes. And then, because Mike did right there, well, but that's, yeah. It was like high school. Yeah, it's like that, like please, and those who know, that's, you have an idea. So, I got tattletaled on by a bunch of high schoolers, which I wouldn't be surprised in regards to finding a silver lining and finding the silver lining. Go to my website, www.susanbleg.com. See my book section, although in this particular reference, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody contacted my biological mother and or my biological father and or biological sister, and, well, here's a few book series that I authored. And so, it is as it is. Yeah, no, that's fine. So this guy, he had this pocket watch, sort of doohickey bomb, and in Texas, the first time I saw this was in San Antonio before Lackland Air Force Base, by the way, at one event in either 2004 or 2005. And then there was the guy at Wilbur Hall, as far as the colonel's aide. And then later, I saw this guy in 2009 at the Uniform Fetish Ball. Although, no, in 2010. In 2010, I saw him with this. And then in 2019 or 2020, I saw him. And it was like, oh, I remember that. So, real quick now. So, I'm going to put up this little picture that I drew. This is my babysitter's interior downstairs part of the house with her husband, so Sunny Sonia and Joe Jose. So this is the downstairs. You got the garage and storage area, and then the Barbie dolls and Chico situation, the living room area, one of the birds, whatever, the red macaw and the green macaw, and then, washer and dryer storage in the bathroom area. Yeah, so then... Then you got the upstairs, okay? So the upstairs, there's the stairs. Oh, I forgot that part. So there's stairs over here. So these stairs go upstairs, and this was David's room, who had gotten into the gap situation. And then this is Laisa's room, although I don't know how to spell it correctly. Sunny, Sonia, and Joe Jose's room. This is a full bathroom that they shared. I don't know how their bedroom was, just for clarification. Is the kitchen, this is the dining room area and the sitting room area, and sometimes the Christmas tree, depending on the year, would be whichever way. And so there's some stairs right there. And so this is when you entered the house. So here's the door right here, and this is a platform area where you just kind of, it's like a foyer. And so these are the upstairs, and that's the downstairs, and then walls. And then, because, this just seems apropos. So here's the outside. So it's a triangle type property, but I couldn't draw it in that capacity here. So the driveway is this way. There's a road here and a road here. And so the driveway goes to the garage. Here's the sidewalk with the mailbox and the front door. And these are chain link fence areas. And in the backyard, there's this gate with a walkway. I think it was red brick. And then this patio area, like 2 or 3 steps. And then a gazebo with some white stones around it. And so here's Duke's house, the Weimarander. He actually had 2 houses. And so then there was a pool over here, an octagon-shaped pool with a kind of wraparound deck. And this is where I made a whirlpool. So I'm just going to go in real quick. So this is the regards of, NASA and space station, maybe, I don't know, because there's no trees around the pool that I had made a whirlpool in. So, temperature was white, and so having remembered that, I was like, oh yeah, there was the white sugar. That wasn't pixie stick sugar. And so, you know, it is what it is. Yeah, I learned it wasn't pixie stick sugar. I also got in additional trouble. I think it was 4th grade. I think that's when that one happened. Yeah, it was sometime, as people in Asher Holmes Elementary School might remember, whatever time frame, I think it was 4th grade. So I had gotten in trouble because I had found one of these watches, okay, these little pocket watches. And I didn't know what these little baggies, they were clear bags, and they had a kinda-ish similar to what I had cooked with, ish, and then this little baggies, little sugar-sized bags, but clear. If you have been in the jewelry business, you know what type of bags. And so they were clear. And then, you know, this powder inside of it that I thought was pixie stick sugar. When I saw it that way, in comparison to cooking. So it was as it was. As far as that's concerned, anybody who thinks that their biological parents were stricter, you know, I guess it depends on what you view as a version of, because, you know, all of that babysitting money and, yeah. I made a reference to the Chinese charge for the bullet for certain situations, and maybe this might make sense. So, this is what I dealt with. So, because then, you know, remember, my biological sister got to go to Broadway, because not that I wanted to, but, you know, I took martial arts instead for maybe somebody knows a few reasons why. And so, because, you know, anyway, so I had a whole baggie of what I thought was sugar. It did not taste like sugar at all. There was no, it was horrible. That white powder, that was not sugar. I know that. I don't know what it was, but I do know that I couldn't sleep for almost 7 days or so. I only needed one of those to learn not to do that again. Because I didn't know any better, and so I got in trouble because it wasn't pixie stick sugar at all. It was white sugar that didn't taste like white sugar. So later, you know, there's the cocoa powder, okay, so those who know, and so it was one of those, well, but it was like a white version of that. Where it didn't have any, yeah, anyway, so those who may know, and so I got in trouble for that. And so there's these points in time in my life where I've had people tell me that they thought I had a boring life as a child because I didn't watch movies above a G-rated movie. That's what I had people tell me. I shouldn't say I had them tell me. I should say, as far as this is concerned, people decided to tell me when we would talk, and I didn't have any pop culture references that I could understand as to what they were discussing. They decided to inform me that their opinion of my life, because I didn't go to whatever movies were out in the 1980s and 1990s, as well as television shows and staying up and all that sort of stuff, these people told me that their opinion was that I must have had a boring childhood and a really boring teenage years. So you, in reference to this lecture, as far as listening and watching, maybe you can make a decision as to whether or not my childhood and my teenage years were boring. I made attempts to disagree with some of these people. So in Illinois, usually it was, we know how people are from New Jersey, which which I didn't really understand because I didn't see people walking around that way at all. And then in Texas, it was kind of similar in some ways, and then in other ways, because of the after effects of my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000, then it was, well, maybe he'll have some memories later. And when I would make attempts to actually explain things, they would go on about what I already knew regarding my own after effects from my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000. So these situations regarding my biological mother, biological father, and biological sister having moved from Illinois to Texas, I was informed in Illinois that some people thought that they were as whatever regarding Chi-Town. And I disagreed with them. So, my biological sister had a thing about being in competition with me, even though I wouldn't ever compete. It really annoyed her. It really did. She constantly tried to get people, when we were children in New Jersey, she would constantly just egg people on to try to be competitive. And it was one of those, I didn't care. I was already dealing with a lot of stuff, so I really didn't have this sensation to be competitive over nonsensical things. I was dealing with a few things. I was paying off a debt that I still to this day, I don't believe I should have been charged for, as far as that's concerned. I feel, in my opinion, in my sensations, those charges should fully be dropped. Because I'm just saying it's not my fault that the container said flour. It's not my fault that the container said sugar. It's not my fault as far as that's concerned. If I had known that was, I don't know what types of sugar there are. And in my defense, I was in elementary school, not to be rude or anything. Maybe I could get some slack or some leeway on that. I mean, seriously, I had to deal with so much stuff. My pay got docked when it shouldn't have been. And so as far as my babysitting work and all that sort of stuff, so they, skimmed off the top, and it was like, no, that's not acceptable. That's my work. And so every wishful excuse they had was, well, if you didn't do this, well, maybe if you didn't have it in this area, I wouldn't have had that. And maybe if you didn't do this, why don't you be adults, since you're biologically how many decades older than me? Why don't you be responsible in comparison to holding me accountable for your failures? How about that? How about you actually accept responsibility for that? And I got in trouble for having the nerve to tell my biological parents, as far as my biological mother and my biological father, that it was their fault for putting that in the kitchen directly next to all of the other containers for cooking. It's kind of not rocket science when you really think about it, but I was a child, how dare I? And so then when the Marine and Science Technology School with the Navy attachment came knocking, they all of a sudden, well, everything got kind of locked down. It kind of got a little, what have you on that in comparison. So there was this rave situation in 2000 in Brackenridge. And so, just gonna point out, these needless problems regarding my biological mother and biological father and biological sister. And so on my paperwork, when I had enlisted in the Army, that was handwritten in regarding the life insurance policy, because in the MEP station was not where that was actually done. That was done in the recruiter station as far as the insurance paperwork. And so just for that clarification as to my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000, yeah, so those types of those people, of those problems, I made a reference in regards of a few things and finding the silver lining. Because, after so many years of making attempts to have people actually know the the truth, I dealt with all this stuff. And, you know, if it was where I was actually cared about, and if it was where I was actually wanted in a positive way, and if it was that I was actually treated humanely, maybe, just maybe I'd have a different outlook. Possibly. So it's a hypothetical in those references. Same thing in regards of supposedly friends, supposedly, regarding, you know, the state of Texas or Illinois or any of those locations in New Jersey. You know, don't know. I personally, you know, yeah, it is what it is regarding those factors. In New Jersey, I had people tell me that they didn't have any way to relate to me because, you know, what was there to discuss with me as a child. Then in Illinois, in my mid to late teenage years, you know, again, in a different capacity though, as far as other situations, then in the state of Texas, because of being 17 years old when I had my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000. And the facts. And so people didn't really believe me as far as those time frames. Maybe at some point there can be the belief in reference to what I brought forward in those references, but opinions as far as that's concerned, I guess it depends on whether or not I've clarified and verified enough as to what I dealt with as a child and a teenager and a biological adult. So, you know, there were people that I knew after DYFUS had come and visited the house in New Jersey when I was in 5th grade, because it was known my biological mother worked at Prudential, and it was known that there were all the prior medical situations in reference to immunizations throughout my childhood and other scientific medical aspects. And so my biological mother and biological father trying to claim the religious situation in comparison was what DYFUS had a bunch of red flags about, because they had my medical records from Prudential. And so I got blamed for a lot of stuff that occurred in reference to phone calls that they had. And I got blamed for discussions that were in different times and different situations where I didn't say anything and I didn't do anything. And so I dealt with a few situations because of, I don't know what I was being blamed for. Realistically, because what did I actually do? When you really think about it. So I dealt with all of these situations where I don't know if it's the sins of the father aspects, but hey, you know, just gonna point this out there. So DYFUS had shown up in 1992 in October, or the beginning of October or the end of September, because my pediatrician had contacted the DYFUS group, or for those who don't know what DYFUS is, it's the equivalent of Child Protective Services. And because I had had a perfect attendance in every grade up to that point, they had all of my immunization records for public school, and so on and so forth. There were all of these discrepancies regarding my biological mother and my biological father. And so, you know, I was invited to attend Mass with the Navy attachment, and then the interviews after the test and essays. And so then these military guys started childhood, showing up to the house in September of 1996, and my biological mother and biological father had problems with them showing up. Then we moved in 1998. Then I went to St. John Vianney High School in comparison to Marlboro Middle School. Marlboro Middle School, or Marlboro High School, because Marlboro High School is a public high school. So then instead of, I went to St. John Vianney High School, which, you know, it's a parochial high school, so you know it costs money. And so, dealt with a few situations, and then, you know, it is as it is. And so then it was in Illinois. And my biological sister, throughout the time frame, tried to, whatever, my buckgung and my buckpoo in my childhood were against what Mike and Anna were doing. Because they, and my buckgung and my buckpoo stood up to them, dealt with them, and it was as it was, because when they found out what was going on after I was in 5th grade, my buckgung and my buckpoo had severe problems with Mike and Anna. They already had issues because of how the differences were between my biological sister and I. When they learned what I was dealing with to that level, and 5th grade, my grandpa Gavitt, my buckgung, my buckpoo, and Sunny Sonia, as well as Joe Jose, they all went after my biological mother and biological father. And when certain situations got really, really bad, that was when we moved to Illinois. Because they didn't want to, which they had to, I had told them, there's going to be a day where you have a reckoning. And you're going to answer for what you did. You have no option but to. And Mike and Anna and Patricia, as time went on, said, oh, you don't know anything, you know, this, that, and the other. And I kept warning them, there's going to be a day, there will be a reckoning where all that stuff will be laid out. I promise you. And they didn't want to believe me at all. So, you know, it is as it is in comparison. And so it was as it was. You got the merger coming up in a couple of weeks. So today is the 18th of May, 2022, and the 6th of June in 2022 is the T-Mobile Sprint merger situation. And so there's that irony of irony, because you have the Verizon Wireless is I think the first company that ate in comparison to Sprint, though AT&T had made T-Mobile. So you have that, and so T-Mobile and Sprint are going to merge, and all you have to do is look at stocks and understand that. And so, yeah, so that's what it is. So this is another aspect of my childhood that some people might not have understood, especially probably in the supposed to be consenting adult lifestyle, as to how many classes and electives and demos, because I needed to understand certain things, because I didn't have words as a child, because I was a child and I was told, I'm going to guesstimate that that was not actual sugar, unless there's unsweetened sugar, because then there's Kool-Aid, so, you know, because Kool-Aid is unsweetened sugar-ish. So, didn't really know, you know, for those who actually know how that is. So yeah, that's the way I grew up. I really liked Tang, though, because Tang was sweetened. You didn't have to worry about which situation anybody who would know that and understand that for that clarification. So yeah, that's my childhood. Yeah, in a little brief nutshell. So then there's the other area, so in Club Sapphire, and a few locations, very few as far as dance clubs, where I've gone dancing, and people have seen what's considered rave music or techno and stuff like that. Yeah, so I mean, maybe that some locations where I heard, you know, P. Diddy and Biggie Smalls and stuff like that. Might make a bit of sense, you know, as far as a few situations in comparison to Ace of Base and Green Day. Maybe, I don't know, maybe there's some individuals that might have a better idea in those particular references as to that understanding. But hey, I survived that. You know, and then there's the basement in New Jersey. And I'm not talking about Old Tenet Presbyterian Church's basement. However, my biological mother, biological father were big proponents for it. Yeah, along with my biological sister when they were doing the board meeting in regards to that. And it's one of those, no, you're gonna have to accept you have to listen to me. You're gonna have to accept the fact that I know better. You're gonna have to accept the fact, especially when you take in consideration regarding my Medal of Honor art project trip as a metaphor to Pastor William Tennant and how accurate I was, you're gonna actually have to take my advice. You're gonna have to actually accept that. You're gonna actually have to, because there are the facts as to what occurred when it was ignored. That's not my fault, that's their choices. So, in my opinion, as far as that's concerned, so I warned them that General George Washington's spirit was infuriated. And nobody wanted to listen to me at the time. Then I warned them about a bunch of other stuff, and so on and so forth. And each and every time I warned them, I was always proven accurate. It is one of those, at what point in time do you actually pay attention and believe? Because for the longest time, I didn't ever want to tell people that because I didn't want to be like Mike, as far as that was concerned, because he'd bring up the trustee situation. And it's one of those, I don't want to be in that level, you know? So if I prove through clarifications and verifications at some point, it's just going to be irrefutable proof of the truth. So, you know, don't be jealous, because realistically, in my opinion, I could be incorrect, though fairly certain there could be some accuracies having been found, as far as some hypotheticals. And so, thanks for tuning in to my official YouTube channel. Make sure to subscribe to my official YouTube channel. Make sure to like my official YouTube videos and go to my website, www.susanmuling.com, also known as www.ladydorybell.com. And it's the same website just for clarifications. And you can look around as far as what I've been working on, as far as that's concerned. And there's a contact form. Do use etiquette and respect if you choose to do so. You can leave a comment in reference to my official YouTube channel and my YouTube videos. Use etiquette and respect, of course, in those references, preferably. So, you guys have a good day, and maybe somebody understands what white gold is and white sugar, although I would guesstimate, so real quick before I end this particular official YouTube video of mine. So there was this guy I dated for a while, and we went to the shop, and unlike the stopwatch, or depending on what you look at, or pocket watch, where it was, you know, as far as that's concerned, he had asked me if I knew what a dugout was, and I looked at him and I was just like, you mean for baseball? Who doesn't know what a dugout is? Seriously. And he laughed at me, and I was like, what's so funny? And he was just like, no, because we were in a shop. What is it? Well, so because of certain things I grew up with, you know, one of the guys behind the counter gets this little wooden box situation, and I open it, and I'm like, oh, are there fairies in there? Because anyone who knows certain things about fairies. And so, no, it wasn't. So, but it did look like a squished flat situation regarding the pocket watch. Though made of wood in comparison to made of silver. So you know. And there are these silver linings along my straps. So, you guys have a great day. Thanks for tuning in. Today is the 18th of May, 2022. Make sure to go to my website, www.susanbeeling.com, and subscribe to my official YouTube channel, like my official YouTube videos, and if you're going to leave a comment, make sure to have etiquette and respect. Again, today is the 18th of May, 2022.